Between the Olympic Games and the return of fall sports practices, your child's athletic ability might be top of mind. But is all of this competition too much for young kids and teens?
And it's happening earlier. I mean, it used to be more just in the high school age group, but it's happening earlier and earlier that, the competition is there.
We talked to a chief medical officer about when high expectations are harmful to a child's mental health and how to take the pressure off when it comes to sports. And we talk heat-related illnesses, when to realize your child is in danger. That's today on Mom Squad. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me on Mom Squad. I'm Maureen Kyle. With the Olympic Games just wrapped up, did you watch and wonder if your kid will ever compete in the Games? Some of those athletes have stories of being gifted at a young age. Some of them didn't even try the sport until high school. Athletic ability comes at different ages, so you never know. As youth sports becomes more and more competitive, kids are under a lot of pressure to be really good at their sport long before their body is fully grown. There's pressure to get on a good travel or club team. There's pressure to make the cut in high school, and even more pressure to play in college, even on scholarship. You hear parents stress out all the time about youth sports, but so do the kids. So today, I'm sitting down with Dr. Gary Grossell, Chief Medical Officer at United Healthcare of Ohio, to talk about the mental health toll competitive sports can have on our kids. This is the time of year where all the kids are in sports, and I know I personally sign my kids up for a lot of sports because they want to do all these activities.
Sure.
But it can take a mental health toll.
Right.
Where do you see the biggest toll on kids' mental health when it comes to sports?
I think it's the pressures that are put on by not only the coaches, but also the parents at times can put a lot of pressure on their own kids to make sure they're doing the best they can. And that you have to take a step back sometimes as a parent and just realize, these are kids and they are young, and we see in the Olympics some of the pressure that's put on and how we have to react with that, with the mental health aspect of it.
Yeah, coming from a place of a parent, I know that one of mine, I've probably mentioned it before on this show, she needs a little bit more motivation. Sure. We're always trying to encourage her a little bit more, but just where is it the line between encouragement and pressure?
Yeah, I think, that is just so important as a parent to get to know your child well enough to know what it takes to motivate them. Because there are some kids that need a little bit more of the tough love kind of thing, and others that, you have to be a little, hand-holding to help them get through. And there is a fine line, and it's tough being a parent today, and knowing what it takes from your kids. But I think one of the most important things is just understanding and knowing your child pretty well. Being around them enough to know when things are changing. Like, wow, my child they're acting very differently today or the last week. And understanding there may be something going on more mentally there. You just said it's tough being a parent. It's tough being a kid now with how early all these sports happen. So what are some of those signs? And are they different for different ages? Where are we looking for where our kids are starting to act differently, and it might be because of these pressures? Yeah, and one of the things, I like having routine involved, and one of those big routines as a family is kind of that family dinner, if it's possible. When I was growing up, it was always we had to be there no matter what sport we were in, we had to be there at the time. And that's a time when you get to know your child pretty well, and no signs of depression, no signs of anxiety, things that all of a sudden they're not eating at all anymore, and they were a great eater before. Their sleep habits are very different. They're just talking about things that are more hopeless than looking forward to things, and just recognizing that, and then being open with them. Like, I hear you're kind of saying things like this. Tell me more about it, and validate what they're saying, but don't judge. I think that's important. Do you feel that kids will say, some kids are hard to open up, will they say something like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example of like, I don't know, so-and-so's a better baseball player than I am, or what kind of indication is it that
it's a bigger issue in their own minds, and maybe it's something we would not think twice about.
Right, and yeah, it's a great point. Is this person's better, and that's where you kind of say that's great for them, and they've worked hard for that, and let's try to get you to that point. So just what can we do? What can you do? Have them come up with the plan.
Yeah.
What can you do to try to help, get to that point where they are also. And it just allows them again to know, okay, they're letting me choose this. My mom is saying, I can do this on my own, and then just be supportive of that.
Yeah. Are you seeing more and more kids come in with anxiety or some other mental health effects because of specifically the pressures?
Yes, I mean, right now it is, this age group is definitely, we are seeing many more psychiatric issues. They're more on the anxiety, slight depression, mild depression type symptoms. But the good thing is people are more open to it. In the past it was all, you're not allowed to talk about that.
Right.
So at least people are recognizing it more, and kids are willing to talk about it more, and that's a good thing. But yes, to answer your question, we are seeing a lot more of that today.
I know it's partly that we are more open to talking about mental health, but when I was a kid, there was no club sports for 6-year-olds.
Right.
And now, I mean, I had last year, my 4-year-old just turned 5. A coach came up and asked if she wanted to swim year round. I mean, so we're adding that pressure at an earlier age. That competitive mentality is now on kids as young as 5, 6, 7, where I didn't even start sports back then, maybe t-ball.
Right.
So are we introducing pressure at an earlier age?
I mean, there are a lot of good things that occur with physical activity.
Okay.
I mean, right now we know that 50% of kids age 6 to 17 are competing in some type of sport through school, and we're trying to actually get that to 60%, by 2030. It's a great thing, and there's a lot of great things that happen, with a lot of the physical activity that we do with our kids. Obesity right now is the population in Ohio. 36% are obese. Type 2 diabetes is rising astronomically. And also physical inactivity. 25% of the population in Ohio is physically inactive. So doing these things is great. However, it becomes overwhelming because of the pressure of not only doing that, but also competing academically and also socializing. I mean, we want our kids to be socializing. And so starting early is important in certain ways, but it can become overwhelming.
Where is it that, we'll talk about parents in a little bit, but with kids, and I'm sure 6-year-olds might not be thinking this way, but when is it that they start to put the pressure on themselves and compare themselves to the other athletes? Is there an age range where we should start to be concerned about, where the kids are looking around and thinking, I'm not a starter on the soccer team, or I'm not,
Right.
I'm not getting as many base hits as that kid, or, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's happening earlier. I mean, it used to be more just in the high school age group, but it's happening earlier and earlier that, the competition is there. And, certain competition is healthy. It's a good thing, but you also have to just have your children understand that, competing is something that we're constantly going through, and you're always going to be measuring up. There will always be people that will be better than you. There will always be people that aren't as good as you, but just be happy for them. Try to, we saw in the Olympics, how they were happy. Simone and her teammate were, bowing down to, it's a great thing to be able to see that. And that's, even your kids watching that is something to be proud of and to watch and see what you can emulate.
Yeah. And we started off this interview by talking about how it's a lot of times the parents that are putting the pressure on kids. How do we talk to our kids about these things? About, is there anything we can say? Or like you just mentioned with showing them how Olympic athletes are congratulating each other and celebrating each other. What is it that we can do regularly that will help kids frame sports competitively, but in a healthy way, and actually think of it as more fun?
Right. And, I even fell into this trap a little bit, with my kids. I was like, I have to teach you how to switch hit when they were 5 or something.
Right. We all fall into it.
Yeah,
I know.
But then, I learned, as we all learn through experience, that, sometimes that is putting too much pressure on them. I mean, my son, who, I was doing that with, ended up playing lacrosse after. He's like, I'm kind of done with baseball. And it also leads to that point of year-round with one sport. I just attended the Hall of Fame with CC Sabathia, and he said, the best advice he got from his mom was to play year-round. Play football, play basketball, play baseball. They all help with the one sport, so you don't get burned out. And you are, willing to, okay, I'm done with football. Let's get into the next sport. This is great, And so it remains more of a, instead of a burden, more like a happy, now I can, do this other sport that I love doing as well.
After a quick break, we talked to Dr. Grissel about how you can help reframe your child's thinking to make sports a more fun experience. Welcome back. We've been talking with Dr. Gary Grissel, the Chief Medical Officer for United Healthcare of Ohio, about pressures kids face during youth sports and how it affects their mental health. Even this past week, it's the first year one of my daughters can run cross country. So she came home, I said, so do you love it? And this is the one who needs a little motivation. Yeah. And then, God love him, my husband goes, are you the slowest? And then she started to cry. She's the youngest on the team, and so then we had to backpedal, and so when parents find themselves saying the wrong thing, or maybe they realize, oh man, I'm really putting some pressure on my child, are there any key phrases or anything that we should be telling our kids to kind of bring them back to the point of, no, this is something you work on, or
Right. I think, even with your husband saying, are you the slowest? And then she starts crying like, I might be, or something.
Right.
You could even make it more into a joke where, I remember when, I was in this, situation and, I was the slowest too. But you know what I did? I started working harder and I started doing this and that so I can even be, the second slowest. And then I started moving up and I was able to, compete that way. But you know what? I had fun and I liked being with my teammates. I liked cheering them on, and again, some will be very good, and those, keep cheering them on because they might go further, and just enjoy being, with the teammates, the camaraderie of it, and just the joy of being with them.
What's the power of telling a child, hey, this was my experience? Hey, I missed a goal, or I lost a few games when I was a kid.
I think it's much more than you think, because they look up to you. I mean, there comes an age where they're like, oh, my parents, they're the worst, or they're the, but there's a time where they really do emulate you, and they think that you're all wonderful, and they actually come back in their 20s, so it's a good thing. Yeah. But, so right now they think you can do no wrong. And so by just telling them, I failed at that too. I struck out 3 times in one game. I thought, that was the worst thing. And, now I'm doing just fine. And I learned from that.
Yeah, it's a matter of teaching them resiliency. And do we explain to them, it's good to lose sometimes, and it's good to, not be the best person on the team? Do they understand that when we start to tell them that?
I think, I don't know if you actually say it just like that, but I do think that the way you are talking to them in general about everything, they'll get that, without actually saying it's good to lose, kind of thing. We all learn from winning, we learn from losing. Be gracious, and I think it'll just be a healthier, both physically and mentally, they'll be much more healthy with it.
We've talked a couple times about burnout and on this show, and what to do when your child seems to be burnt, and what is it that you say to them? Because we already kind of mentioned it. There's a fine line between pushing a child, to motivate them and then realizing that there are signs. But if you think your child is to the point where this sport isn't bringing joy anymore, what do you say to them?
That's where you just become very frank at that point and just say, tell me, do you like doing this? Is this something you want to do? Don't think of me pushing you that, doing this, or your coaches, or your teachers. Is this what you like? And see what they say. And yeah, I like it, but I don't want to do it all the time. Okay, and then you can kind of plan from there.
Yeah. Okay,
well, let's look at doing some other things, but then you can come back to this. Let's take a break from it. Because we really want you to love what you do. And it's a good thing overall with, being with your friends, but make sure it's what you want to do.
Yeah. Gary, thank you so much.
Thank you.
This is so insightful for all of the parents who are out there kind of headed into sports season.
And I do want to say one thing, for resources, when we're game planning and setting up our kids for, the fall sports and everything, game plan for getting that first wellness, exam. Yeah. It's always a good time to do it. And, your pediatrician for this age group can really get to know your children, both physically and mentally, and also get that physical exam done. Immunizations can be updated, but also know, what you have through your community, through your health plan. Like at United Healthcare, we have a virtual child and family coaching that can be done. And they actually have 4 45-minute episodes throughout the month that your child can be a part of, and they can also text in between that. So, and sometimes coaching is not quite as intimidating as a psychiatrist or a psychologist, and it just, they might be more willing to do something like that. But so just know the resources that you have.
Yeah, that's a great reminder. All right, Gary, thank you so much.
Thank you.
A huge thank you again to Dr. Gary Grissel. Coming up, if your child hasn't started practices yet, I'm sure they will in the next week or two. A lot of these practices are outside. We talk about how to recognize heat-related illnesses in kids. Earlier this summer, I dropped my daughter off at camp right at the start of a major heat wave. When she got home, she showed signs of heat-related illness. Something that can be potentially dangerous for kids, especially when they're active in the heat. Jeremy Baker from our San Antonio station has more on the signs to recognize.
When it gets really hot, we do, but otherwise, people just try to tough it out.
Samantha Cheatham is a senior in the marching band at Lady Bird Johnson High School. She says that those who tough it out too much are the ones she looks out for when it comes to a heat illness.
One of the most telltale signs is they start wobbling a little bit and their vision starts to go. So you see them blinking a lot repeatedly.
We can have more time outdoors in the morning versus the afternoon. And then in the afternoon, we all go indoors and then practice music.
The type of surface the kids are spending a lot of time on has a big impact on their overall health as well. If you're standing in the sunshine, say the temperature is 90 degrees, in the shade under those canopies, just 78. On the grass, also 90 degrees, but here on the asphalt, it is a blistering 145.
We have an app that all of our directors have a subscription to that notifies them of the weather, and based on that temperature, they set the guidelines regarding how many water breaks must happen, how many minutes in the shade should take place each hour.
Educators and students alike should look out for these heat illness symptoms: headaches, dizziness, heat cramps, exhaustion, heat stroke, and loss of consciousness. That's why hydration is key.
We have full access to water at all times. We have full access to ice at all times.
This is such a great reminder to also talk to your child's coach, see what the protocol would be if your child has an emergency on the sidelines, and also make sure that they hydrate. Well, if you want to join our squad, find us on Facebook. It's the Mom Squad with Maureen Kyle Facebook page, or on Instagram at Mom Squad Show. We'll be covering a lot of back-to-school topics over the next few weeks. I'm Maureen Kyle. We'll see you right back here next time.